What's up guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Priscilla. I am a Nigerian women's wear designer based in London. In this video I'm going to be showing you guys how to make a welt pocket. So if you own a tailored coat or jacket or pair of trousers or a skirt, you most likely would have spotted a welt pocket by now. So it sort of looks like the opening of an envelope. Sometimes it has like one sort of lid or lip, and sometimes it has two. So you either have the single welt or the double welt that opens up like so. So in this video I'm going to be showing you guys how to make a single welt pocket. The method I used is what you can apply to make the double. All you have to do is sort of change the width of the strip that goes across the pocket. If you guys would like to see how to make this pocket design, then keep on watching. And without further ado and enough rambling and hair flicking, let's get straight into this tutorial, shall we? It's so hot. It's unbelievable. These are a few things you should take into consideration before going ahead to make this pocket. You should decide where you want it to sit, how wide you want it to be, as well as the shape. So a welt pocket is something that you can add on trousers, skirts, coats, jackets, bags, pretty much anything and everything. You can even change the shape and make it more unique. But for this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you guys how to make a simple, straight welt pocket. So these are the pocket pieces that you're going to be needing. First of all, you need to sort of draw this shape on the garment. So this might be the front of a dress, this might be a skirt, this might be a trouser, but I just cut out this rectangle and I drew out the shape here like so. The shape is 14 centimeters long and 3 centimeters wide. I've also cut out the pocket bag, which is 18 centimeters long and 15 centimeters deep. It is 18 centimeters long because you want 2 cm extra on each side of the pocket opening. So I decided to cut it on the fold, so I just saved myself extra work, and now I just have one piece for the pocket bag. So you also be needing the welt strips, let's just call it that for now, and I'm going to be using 2, and they measure the same length as the pocket, which is 18 centimeters, and they are 4 centimeters wide. So you have to press it in half and attach one on the top and one on the bottom of the shape that I have drawn on this big rectangle here. So the first thing we need to do is to press the welt pieces in half. So I've got out my very beautiful, cute ironing board, and I'm going to fold these strips in half, and I'm going to press them using a hot iron and steam. Just press it flat like this in half. Do that for both strips, because what you would need to do is you need to sew them onto the garment before going ahead to attach the pocket bag, and so on and so forth. So once you press both strips like this, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next step, and I'm going to grab my garment in quotes, and I'm going to take the first strip that we've pressed, and I'm going to place the raw edge along the middle of that rectangle. So you want to make sure it's along the middle and it has 2 cm allowance on each side. So I'm just double checking with my tape measure before going in to secure it with a pin. So I'm just going to add one pin here and one pin on the other side before doing the same with the other strip at the bottom of this rectangle shape that we've drawn. So once those strips are secure, I'm going to take a needle and a thread, and we're going to sort of hand tack these strips in place. You can sew this on your sewing machine using the looser stitch, but I just think hand tacking it is quicker because you can do even bigger stitches, because we're going to be removing this stitch later on in the tutorial. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish this top bit and go ahead and hand tack the bottom strips so they stay put and in place. So once that is done, I'm going to take out my pins, because the stitches are going to keep the strips put, and even when I sew they wouldn't move around. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark 2 centimeters from the edge. You know that 2 centimeters allowance that we gave? Yes, we're going to mark that because that's where our stitch is going to stop. So I've just gotten a red pen and I'm just marking 2 cm from the edge on this top piece, doing the same on the bottom, on the left and on the right hand side. Once I've marked all of my points, we are going to be sewing on a 0.5 seam allowance. So attaching these strips onto the garments, I'm going to do that for the top piece and the bottom piece. So I'm just using my tape measure to ensure I'm actually at 0.5 seam allowance from the raw edge, which we aligned with the middle of that rectangle shape we drew earlier. And I'm just sewing from my 2 cm point from the beginning all the way to the end. I'm going to do that on both strips before taking off the hand tacking stitch that we did earlier on to secure the welt pieces. So I'm just going in here to remove the loose stitch. This is why I think when you just do it with your hand, is quick and it's easy to get rid of when it's time to remove them from the welt. So now that we've removed those loose stitches, it's time to actually cut the pocket open. So no pressure, take your time, but because you've already drawn that line that you can see right in the middle there, which we aligned the strips to, we're going to be cutting that middle point open. So you cut the middle point, but you stop 1 cm before the end of the stitch. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm just going in here with my tiny scissors, opening up a point in the middle, and I'm cutting slowly, cutting only the garment, not the strips that we've just sewn, just only the garment at the bottom. And I'm just taking my time, cutting nice and slow, and stopping 1 cm before the edge here. So I'm going to turn it around and cut the other side up, stopping 1 cm just before the edge, and you're going to see why we left that 1 cm sort of allowance or give. So I'm going to go in and cut a small triangle that ends right at the edge of that stitch, because that triangle is what you will need to sew the flap inside of the pocket. So I'm just going in here to cut the other side of this triangle, turn it around and cut the other triangle up, ensuring I get to the very end of that stitch. So this is what it looks like up close. I've cut the pocket open, I've cut my tiny triangles on the left and on the right hand side, and I'm going to be showing you why these triangles are really important in making welt pockets. So I'm going to turn the pieces inside out. So I'm going to turn this to the front and then push these flaps that we've stitched on inside of the garment or inside of the pocket. And what you really want to push out is the edges, those 2 cm edges that we left, because you will need those edges on the inside to sew onto those triangles that we cut. So I'm just overlapping it like so, because I want just a single welt, and because of the width of the pieces that we made, you can't have the double welt opening like I showed earlier on in this video. So we have our triangles, we have our 2 cm extensions, so we're going to be sewing the tiny triangle onto the 2 cm extension. So I just went ahead and I dusted off the chalk mark, I gave it a nice press so everything is nice and smooth and I know sort of what I'm supposed to be stitching together. So this is what the front looks like right now. It's not perfect, but I think it looks good enough for the tutorial. And these are my edges. That is my triangle, which I'm going to be stitching onto that edge right there, and I'm going to be repeating the same thing on the other side of this pocket opening. So I'm just taking this to my machine and I'm sewing with a normal stitch, sewing my triangle right at the edge to my 2 cm extension, so you can say you're sewing on a 2 cm seam allowance at this point. So now that I've stitched up my triangle and my edges, this is what it looks like. Everything has sort of relaxed once you stitch those triangle points in place, because it forces the flaps to stay flat and it forces them to stay inside of the garment. So the next thing we'll be doing is to sew the pocket back onto the inside of the pocket, and I'm just taking this end right here and I've put some pins, and we're going to be sewing on that very tiny edge that you can see right here, and we're going to be sewing on a 0.3 seam allowance, because remember we attached that on a 0.5 seam allowance. So I'm just going onto my machine, sewing using a normal regular stitch, normal tension from the beginning all the way to the end, and it should look somewhat like this. So I'm going to turn this over, grab the other side, and we're going to be sewing it to the other side of the welt. So you can add some pins if you feel like you don't want the thing to move when you take it to your machine, I'm just going to add 2, one at the beginning and one at the end, and I'm going to be sewing on a 0.3 seam allowance from the beginning of this piece all the way to the end, joining the side of the pocket bag to the seam allowance of the welt. So I'm just going in here and I'm sewing using my domestic machine, using a normal regular stitch on a 0.3 seam allowance. So this is what the pocket bag looks like right now. The sides are still open, and you should just have them open to ensure that you want the pocket bag to go in the direction of the opening of the pocket. So just go ahead and put your hand through, check that everything is right, and then use a pin to keep the bag in the direction that you want it to go, because the worst thing that can happen is to sew the pocket bag in the opposite direction and you can't get into the pocket bag. So I'm just going to go ahead and sew up the side seams on a 1.5 seam allowance, sewing up the left and the right, and that would automatically close up the pocket bag and have it secure, so whatever you put in there would not fall out through the side. So this is the pocket all finished. It's pretty straightforward and easy. It took me a bit of time to really master, but once you know how to do this single one, all you have to do the double one is to cut those original strips with half of the measurement. So if we started with 4, you want to cut 2 cm to have that double welt that looks like an envelope and has a slightly different look in comparison to this one. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video all the same. I hope you try it out in the future, and I can't wait to find out your feedback, questions and suggestions in the comment section down below. Until my next video, have a good morning, afternoon and evening wherever you are. Bye.